programs. I am always a learner. So I would like to learn economy from today. What does this all mean from today, from you, sir? So please take it. I think you are speaking first, Rajrishi. So I welcome Rajrishi to first come and address.
Hello, good afternoon. Can I be heard at the back, and can that be seen? Yeah, okay, thank you. So I have the enviable task of speaking after Jitendra Awhad and before Professor Arun Kumar. So I'll try and keep this as brief and as short as possible. I'm going to talk about demonetization and point out at a few flaws in the execution of the whole program. Can we have the hall lights on, please? Yeah, thank you. I like to see the people I'm talking to. What is demonetization, and how was this program launched, and how was it executed? So if you look at the goalposts, when they first started, when it was first announced on November 8, thereafter the end objectives kept changing rapidly. First, when it was announced, they said that the entire demonetization is to end counterfeit cash, is to end fake currency, some of it which is used in financing terrorist activity. But as soon as that statement was made, it came out in the media, and a lot of economists came out with the data that counterfeit currency is only a small part of the entire currency in circulation. It's about 3 to 4% only. So it seemed like they were trying to kill a mosquito with a Bofor's gun. And thereafter, they immediately changed their tune, and they said that, oh, no, actually, you know, we want to kill all those who have black money. We want to finish black money. But again, as Professor Arun Kumar has very eloquently explained in the past, and I'm sure he will do so later on, there is a difference between black money, black wealth, and black cash. And the black cash that they wanted to destroy, that they wanted to attack, is only a small part of currency in circulation. Again, it is just 3% or 4% at the most, and I'm being very liberal. So again, it seemed that for 3–4% of currency in circulation, you were launching this huge mammoth exercise which sucked out 86% of currency from the system. And if you look at the deposit figures from RBI, and if you look at between November 11, which is 3 days after the scheme was announced, and December 9th, and that's the latest till which data is available, 4,76,510 crore has been deposited with banks. So if you're saying all this is cash and it's black money, then it somehow defeats that statement. It somehow doesn't jive with what's been said, what the messaging that's been given out to everybody. And last year, it was just 82,790 crore. So which means this year, the same period, the deposit with banks has gone up 5 times more, which means whatever money was there with the public has gone back to the banking system. There is very little black cash available in the system. It somehow defies understanding that black wealth, which is accumulated in the form of bullion or in the form of property or in the form of stocks in blue chips companies, that process of generating black wealth, that process hasn't been stopped. So third way had to be found, because both black money and the counterfeit currency wasn't helping. So they said, oh, we have a national objective, we want to digitize. We want to go towards a cashless economy. And then they made it, they embedded a lot of nationalistic objectives in this by saying you're doing it for the country, this is good for the country. So let's test this hypothesis. First, are we ready? Is this country ready for digital cashless economy? So there are about 200,000 ATMs in this country, and that's end August RBI figures. And most of those ATMs are in metro and urban areas. You compare that with 6 lakh villages in this country. So is the country covered by ATMs? Do they have access to cash through ATMs? No. There are 220 million smartphone users in a country which has 1.2 billion population. That's about 18% of the total population. So if you want to do transactions on your mobile, only 18% of the population can do transactions on the mobile. Okay, let's be a little more liberal. Let's say 300 million. Does it materially change the number? We all complain about network nahi, call drop, etc., etc. If you are to do digital transactions, if you are to conduct mobile transactions all the time, you need robust networks, networks that are always there, always present, and reliable networks. We don't have that kind of network today. In any case, there was a debate on TV yesterday in which some IT experts said that to reach 50% digitization of the economy, it'll take 3 years. And there were bipartisan IT experts. So if you want to achieve digitization, can it be done by sucking away 86% of the currency from the system and waiting for 2020? Internet penetration is just 35% of the population, roughly. And this includes both laptop, tablets, as well as phones. Now, financial inclusion, okay. Let me go back to a report committee that was set up under Dr. C. Rangarajan, who was the former governor of RBI. The government set up this committee to look at financial inclusion and how to improve financial inclusion in the rural areas. And the committee did some surveys, did some studies, and they came to the conclusion on the basis of empirical data that financial inclusion is seen to be higher in areas where there are higher incomes. I mean, this seems so logical, but somehow you needed data to prove that. And they showed that in areas where there was steady, stable agricultural income, people were more willing to open bank accounts, to take loans, to buy insurance products. But if you don't have stable incomes for 65 to 70% of India's households, will you have, forget financial inclusion, will you have digitization? And finally, I think it's an ethical issue. Whether I decide to use a card or whether I decide to use an M-wallet, it's my choice. I might decide to use cash where it's convenient for me, where it's, depending on the cost, the convenience, the availability. So, they call it surgical strike. Now, I thought, let me use an example from the world of surgery and see, how do experiments or operations like these carried out in the world of medicine. In 2007, the World Health Organization came across this data. And there was a medical crisis, global medical crisis. They felt that a lot of people were dying while surgery was being done, while it was being performed in operation theaters, or because proper post-operative care was not there. In 1999, about 100,000 people alone in USA died in operating theaters because of negligence and callousness. And WHO felt this was a global medical crisis. This was not a virus or a bug. And they started working on this and how to reduce deaths because of callousness or because of negligence in operating theaters. So they approached Dr. Atul Gawande, who is a successful endocrinologist, a surgeon. He's an author and a columnist with a magazine called New Yorker. He has written two very popular books. The latest one called Being Mortal, where he discusses death and medicine's approach to death and how to treat death. It's a fascinating book. I would suggest and urge all of you to go to BBC4 website and hear his podcast. BBC4 does an annual lecture called Reith Lecture, which is delivered in 4 parts across 4 cities. Some years ago, they invited Professor Dr. Atul Gawande to come and deliver this lecture, and he delivered it in Boston, London, Edinburgh, and New Delhi. So they got hold of Dr. Gawande and some other people, some other doctors and associations to look at this crisis. One of the first things, that's Dr. Atul Gawande. He's an American citizen of Indian origin. His parents migrated from India. Both his parents were doctors. His father belonged to a village called Ooty, which is near Buldana somewhere. And his mother's from Ahmedabad. He was born and he grew up in USA, very successful surgeon. So this team put together their heads, and one of the first things they decided was to hire an aircraft safety engineer. So they got in a specialist from Boeing. So you wonder why, in the world of medicine, would they like to hire an aircraft specialist? It is because in airports, aircraft safety specialists make sure that a flight takes off on time safely with all the boxes tick marked. And there is a huge team that goes, that puts work, that coordinates its efforts and makes sure that the aircraft leaves the tarmac safely. So there are engineers, there are security people, there's the crew, there's the pilot, there are the fuel chaps. And if you listen to Dr. Gawande's podcast, it's, he says that when this specialist came in and he started observing how surgeons work, he saw Dr. Atul Gawande walking into surgery one day. And he stopped him and said, "You're just going in." So he said, "Yeah, why not?" He said, "No, but do you know what to do?" He said, "Of course, I'm the surgeon. I know what to do." He says, "How do you know?" He says, "What do you mean? I've studied. I've been doing surgery for so many years." And then it slowly, the penny dropped that there was no coordination. Within the medical team also, there was no discussion. And a lot of checklists were developed. So, for instance, there's some silly things like, are they getting the right patient in the operating theater or not? Then, whether they're operating on the right side of the body or not. Like these, there were a lot of questions. Do they know everybody? Has the anesthetist conveyed the medical condition of the patient to the surgery team? Have the coordinate, do they have all the medicines? Does the nurse count the number of tools and implements before the surgery and after the surgery and do the tally? Because in many places, implements get left inside the body. And so a lot of work was done. They launched this pilot in 8 cities, 4 high-income cities and 4 low-income cities in the world. London, Toronto, Seattle, Auckland for high-income, Delhi, Manila in Philippines, Amman in Jordan, and Ifakara in Tanzania. This pilot project was launched in 2010. In 1 year, they saw an average reduction in complications by 35% and an average 47% reduction in deaths because of this one checklist. A normal checklist which says communicate between your team members, make sure you're doing the right thing. So did we have the right checklist while doing demonetization, while taking the decision on November 8th? Did we tick all the boxes? So I'll use one global example again on demonetization. It's not exactly demonetization. This is about the euro. So on January 1st, the euro replaced 12, on midnight of January 1st actually, 2002, the euro replaced 12 currencies in the world of Europe, 12 national currencies. Overnight, 12 currencies were replaced by just one currency. Think of the huge logistical exercise involved. In the first few days, 8 billion notes and 38 billion coins were distributed through banks, post offices, retail outlets. All the national currencies were also collected by banks. 9 billion notes and 107 billion coins. It took 3 years for EU to prepare for this. There was detailed planning involving all stakeholders. On the night of 31st December 2001, the banks were loaded with almost 66% cash, 96% of coins by value. And there's a strategy behind this. They loaded almost all the ATMs with maximum 10 euro and 20 euro notes because they felt if we give high denomination notes, there'll be a problem of change. People will not be able to transact. And there was some strategic thinking behind it. So हमने सोचा था क्या? हमने ये आदमी से पूछा किसी से कि भाई साहब आपको कौन सा नोट चाहिए? आप किस में कंफर्टेबल हो? 500 में, 100 में, 10 में, 20 में? So he says, the government says that we want to make the country cashless. We want to inculcate a digital payments behavior. We want people to use less cash. But that it is a behavioral changes, and it takes time. Now, this is, train accidents in Bombay, for instance. People crossing tracks in Bombay often get run over. I mean, we know of these accidents. This is rampant in Bombay. And despite the rising number of deaths every year, people still cross tracks and still get run over by trains. So there is this consulting organization called Final Mile Consulting. They call themselves behavior architects. And they used a combination of cognitive neuroscience, behavioral economics, and design elements to create a strategy for reducing train track deaths. They chose Vadala as a pilot project. And they succeeded somewhat. So the results started showing in Vadala. The deaths, in Vadala started coming down. But it's slow. And we don't know how much of this progress is because of Final Mile Consulting or because the government also launched a huge campaign which used radio, television, print, station में loudspeaker के through से, बार-बार बताना कि train track मत cross करिए, bridge use करिए. So we don't know. But behavioral change takes time. It doesn't happen easily. And there is a lot of work being done worldwide for redesigning development policy based on how the human mind works. So there are 3 ways. One is the automatic thinking versus deliberative thinking. So let me quickly, ask you a small question. This is a little quiz. So, समझ लीजिए ball and bat दोनों मिलाकर 110 रुपए दाम है. A ball and bat together cost 110 rupees. Now, if the bat costs 100 rupees more than the ball, what is the cost of the ball? Somebody said 5 rupees? 5 rupees is also the right answer. Automatic thinking, we feel that 10 rupees should be the right answer because I'm saying 100 more. So you deduct 110 minus 100 and you come to 10. But it can also be 5 rupees because 105 plus 5, 100 rupees more. So, we tend to think economic policy in the past has been seen as treating individuals and societies as automatic, rational beings who, have all the information and take rational decisions. But that's not always the case. People don't, take rational decisions all the time, and because they don't have all the information also. And their thinking process is also influenced through society, through the people, their neighbors, their relatives, their friends. And then they also have a lot of mental models about what life should be, what behavior they should have, what kind of concepts should, what is their worldview. And that influences their positions and their decisions. So making social changes, making behavioral changes, you need to look at all of this and include all of this in your planning. If you look at, say, tax, now we think that, if we provide the proper disincentives for tax evasion, tax compliance will rise. But that's never been the case. There have always been penalties for non-compliance, but how many people file tax returns? How many people pay tax despite the penalties? So obviously there is something else that has to be done. Penalties, punitive measures do not always ensure compliance. Similarly with crime. If you look at many states in USA where death penalty is in force, we haven't seen an appreciable reduction in crime rates in those states. So death penalty is not always a deterrent. There are some unintended consequences also because of demonetization. So, for instance, hoarding. Now, when the government took away 86% of currency in circulation, especially 500 rupee notes, and 500 rupee note was a very, fast-moving medium of exchange. All of us used 500 rupee notes because it was very convenient. Everybody had change for 500 rupee notes. It was a very popular note. So you took away 500 rupee note and you took away 1,000 rupee note, and inexplicably, you replaced it with a 2,000 rupee note. Nobody knows why 2,000 rupee note. But because there was no change, the 2,000 rupee note became just an idle store of value. It was not the medium of exchange it was supposed to be. Currency is supposed to be a medium of exchange also. And with scarcity of change, etc., you thought, I'm going to demolish black money, or, this tendency for people to hoard cash, the propensity to, keep cash under the pillow. Actually, that increased because you hadn't planned it properly. And there is a loss of trust in the banking system. It is marginal. We won't see a rush from the banks, but there is a palpable loss of trust in the banks. People will now deliberately keep some money at home because it's my money and the government has stopped me from accessing my own money. Tomorrow, again, they may stop me. And then there are governance issues. So the whole demonetization was done through a section of RBI Act 1937, and that I've done the underlining, on recommendation of the Central Board of RBI. So the central government has